In my 20 years of investigating homicides, this is probably one of the most tragic and difficult cases that we have faced.
The defendant made statements to several people that he intended to kill someone. He didn't say who that was, but he indicated to witnesses that he was going to kill someone by taking them in the woods and stabbing them.
I can just tell you that the man is a cold-blooded killer. And I hate to say man, he's a child, but he committed a man's crime. And with that being said, of course, I just feel like he's being held responsible for the crime he committed.
13-year-old Tristyn Bailey was stabbed 114 times. 49 were defensive, leaving wounds on her hands and arms, while 108 were considered non-fatal. Her attacker wrote in blue ink the words "karma" on one ankle and drew a smiley face inside the other. The authorities found a buck knife in the retention pond close to where her body was found. The tip of that knife was missing, but it would later be found lodged in Tristyn's scalp. Her attacker might have kept stabbing if the knife did not break. The attacker is 16-year-old Aiden Fucci, who was only 14 when he committed such a sinister crime. Will justice be served? Join us as we follow up on the Aiden Fucci murder case. Would he plead guilty? What other damning evidence would come to light? Stay tuned. Tristyn Bailey was killed on Mother's Day, the 9th of May 2021. She was last seen by her sister just after midnight and last picked up by surveillance cameras just before 2 a.m. She was declared missing later at 10 a.m, but was tragically found dead by a neighbor in the evening. The race for justice was on. The authorities identified with whom she was last seen and brought him into custody. On the 11th of May, Aiden Fucci was charged with the second-degree murder of Tristyn. On the 17th, Anwar Snober, who was hired by Aiden's family to defend him, withdrew from the case for unspecified reasons. On the 20th of May, the judge approved indigency, motions filed on behalf of Aiden's parents. As a result of this, Aiden Fucci was to be represented by the Public Defender's Office. After properly analysing the evidence, the charges against Aiden Fucci were changed on the 27th of May. Aiden was now charged with first degree and was set to be held with no bail.
Indictment against Aiden Fucci for first-degree murder involving our victim, Tristyn Bailey. Once the grand jury had done the indictment, we did a transfer order, which I believe some of the folks in the media had already gotten a hold of, transferring the case from juvenile court to adult court.
Earlier, on the 12th of May, a day after Aiden was first charged with second-degree murder, an investigative interview was carried out by Detective Newman of the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. He interviewed Aiden's girlfriend, Sophie Bauman, to gather some much-needed evidence for the case.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to place you under oath. This will be a sworn recorded interview taken by a law enforcement deputy pursuant to Florida Statute 117.10. Please raise your right hand.
Sorry,
Yep. Do you swear or affirm the statement you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Sophie was 15 years old at the time and an 8th grader at Patriot Oaks Academy. She explained that she knew Tristyn Bailey but never really had a personal relationship with her. She also explained that she had reasons to believe that Aiden tried to cheat on her with Tristyn. Sometime before Tristyn was killed, Aiden was jealous and accused Sophie of cheating on him.
Tristyn, because him and I got in a fight and he thought I cheated on him because I sent a picture of me next to one of my sister's guy friends. He was coming back from a party, so I guess he had alcohol in his system. He was freaking out.
Okay.
He got really mad.
When was that?
I don't know what month.
Not like within the last week. It's been a little while. Or?
It's been a while since that happened.
She also said that regardless of the plans, nothing eventually happened between Tristyn and Aiden because they had an argument on the night that it was supposed to happen.
Yeah, it never happened, and he never did anything with Tristyn that night, and he told Trey not to tell me.
He told Trey not to tell you what?
That he tried to cheat on me with her.
Okay. How did you find out about that?
Trey told me when we went back in contact. He said, well, this is what was going to happen that night.
When you say that night, are you referring to Saturday night?
No, the night that him and I got in a fight.
Okay.
When asked to describe Aiden, She described him as a tough kid with a lot of issues. She explained how he always spoke about how hard things were at home. She also spoke about the physical abuse he endured from his father.
He would tell me his mom would tell him he was a disappointment to her family, that he felt neglected by her, that he felt neglected by both of his parents, that he was the least favorite in his family. He told me that sometimes his dad would hit him, and his dad never really let him show emotions.
Sophie then began to talk about Aiden's personality, as she had come to understand. She said that she was aware of his anger issues. It seemed like Aiden had some kind of bond with her, because he usually opened up to her about things he would have preferred to keep. Sophie admitted that on multiple occasions, Aiden confessed to her that he really hated when he got angry, and that he hated doing things that he did when he did get angry.
What type of things would he do when he got angry?
He usually told me he would just throw something. I never really saw him that angry before. He never kind of let me.
Okay.
She then explained the tight-knit relationship between Aiden and Tree, and how it was usually just 3 of them that hung out together.
It was mostly every day just the 3 of us. There were just a few people that we would occasionally be with once in a while, but they never really kind of became part of our group of 3,
Okay.
I guess.
The detective then asked about Aiden's obsessions with knives. Sophie explained that Aiden always kept knives on him and always claimed that he did that for protection.
Aiden kept knives for protection. He
Okay.
always had a knife on him if he wasn't at school. He would keep his AirPods. He listened to music to try and calm him down. He said that helped him with his anger.
In the process of describing the kind of knives Aiden carried out, she was able to identify the buck knife that is considered the murder weapon.
Did it look like this?
Yeah,
Did it look like it, or is that the same type of knife?
that's the same knife.
Okay. And just so you understand, I'm holding a folding buck knife
Yeah.
with a brass frame, right? And a wooden handle? Okay. So you've seen him carry a knife like that
Yeah, it was
pretty commonly?
Yeah, it was mainly those 2.
Okay.
He broke one of them.
And I think I cut you off. You were saying he called it something?
He called one picker, and then he called that one poker.
Okay.
The detective asked if Aiden had ever discussed a plan to use his knives on somebody or anything of the sort, to which Sophie replied yes. She explained that they both had a dark sense of humor, so she never took them seriously. She also mentioned that she trusted Aiden and believed he could not really hurt anyone.
Sometimes he would take his knife and pretend to stab me with it, or sometimes he would come up behind me, put it against my throat and pretend to slit my throat. But I wasn't scared or anything. He never...
You trusted him?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, he would also, like, freak out if he accidentally elbowed me and apologize, shit like that, so... Sorry, just...
After this, Sophie recalled a particular night on the rooftop of her house, where Aiden spoke about a plan to specifically kill someone. He fantasized that he would go out at night for a walk or something of the sort, and that he would drag a random person he came across into the woods and stab them to death. Aiden had also said that it was going to happen very soon, specifically within a month.
I mean, like, what I would do if he murdered someone. I don't know what my answer really was, but he would say that if he was going to murder someone, it was going to be planned.
Okay. I know it's tough, but I want you to kind of go into detail about what he said he would do when he planned this.
He said that he would just walk at night or something and find like a random person walking to and just just dragged them in the woods and stabbed them.
Okay.
He said that he thinks it's going to happen soon. He said I should expect it within the month.
And when was that he said this?
I think this month. I don't know.
Where did he tell you that?
On the roof of my house.
Okay.
This testimony proves that this was a premeditated murder, not a fit of rage, and not a slip-up. Aiden Fucci planned to kill someone, and he had a deadline for it. But it gets even more sinister. Aiden did not intend for this to be his only kill. He planned to not only get away with it, but to also keep on killing.
Trying to conceal, like if he was to hurt somebody, how he would try to get away with it or anything?
He said he'd just act innocent and keep killing people, and then he would run away or something.
Okay.
And make people think that he was dead too and just keep on doing it.
Okay.
Zofie then spoke about the night Tristyn was killed. She maintained that she did not know that Aiden had met up with Tristyn that night until the next day. Sometimes when Aiden was at the back of the police car, she had been in communication with him. At this point she knew Tristyn was missing, so she asked Aiden if he was really with her that night.
That they were together that night until the next day, and he told me.
You mean Aiden told me?
Yeah, I asked, were you guys with her last night? And he was like, yeah. And that's all I said about it.
When did you ask him that?
Sunday morning, when she went missing. I was questioning both of them. I was like, were you guys with her? And they were like, yeah, we were, but she went home.
Okay. When was that? Was that before he was with the police, or was that?
That was, when the police came to his house. He was in the back of the car or something.
Okay.
At this point, you could tell that she was getting more emotional. It probably was starting to sink in that this could have been her. She could just have easily been his victim.
It's not like him.
What's not like him?
To kill someone.
But of course, the detective still needed to push through a couple more questions. He began to ask about specific things regarding Aiden's routine in the weeks leading up to the crime. When asked about his knives, Zofie explained that Aiden never actually went out of his way to hide them. He usually just left them lying around on his desk, or he would just leave them in his pocket. She was then asked about the kind of things Aiden liked to draw. Before this interview, Aiden's house had already been searched and many graphic drawings were found in his room. Zofie explained that he drew graphic pictures, from mutilated bodies to some creepy stuff.
But I think that Aiden tried to draw that word himself. And one of them was a bunch of words that said that he was worthless and that he should kill himself. Aiden told me that he had voices in his head that told him those things, that told him that he was worthless and a disappointment. And I know that he struggled with self-harm sometimes, and he told me multiple times that he had hated himself and that he wanted to kill himself. He also told me that whenever he gets angry, that voice tells him to kill people. And he knew there was something wrong with him, I think. And he wanted to reach out for help.
Okay. When you say he drew graphic pictures,
Just mutilated bodies and stuff like that.
okay.
These pictures were later retrieved during the extensive search of Aiden Fucci's room. While executing the search warrant, the San Antonio Police Department found a notebook amongst other things that belonged to Aiden Fucci. Like Zofie said, this notebook contained drawings of a violent nature.
Drawing, and I don't recall where that one was found.
But it was in the vicinity of the desk?
Yes.
And states 4Z. What is this and where was it found?
That is the drawing that was underneath the water bottle that was at the top of the first photograph.
And all these items were found in Aiden Fucci's bedroom?
Correct.
The SAPD report said the drawings had satanic themes, including a pentagram, as well as violent depictions of women. One of the drawings showed a female with red X's over her breasts and genitals. The incident report says it also showed what appeared to be severed arms that had blood coming out. At this point, the case was building up against Aiden Fucci, and the following day, Aiden Fucci's best friend was brought into the interrogation room.
This is Corporal Hannon, St. Louis County Sheriff's Office. Today's date is Thursday, May 13th, 2021. Time is 14:40 hours. It's in reference to case number SJSO 21OFF004305. Person I'll be interviewing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's Dolphus, correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you say your full name for the record, please?
Dolphus Ray Absher III.
Okay, but you go by Trey, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I've seen different spellings. How do you spell Trey?
T-R-E.
T-R-E. Okay.
Unlike Zoffi, Tree was present with representation, his father's attorneys David Taylor and Brittany Souls, as well as his father via telephone.
Also present is his attorney. Could you?
Yep, attorney Brittany Souls and David Taylor via telephone.
And also your father's here too, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this is your father here?
Yep.
Sir, could you please identify yourself by your full name?
Father Dolphus Ray Absher Jr.
Okay.
Zoffi had spoken up about the smoking habits of Tree and Aiden, so the detective first did his best to calmly explain to Tree that he wasn't going to get arrested for anything. The detective told Tree that he wasn't a suspect in the murder of Tristyn Bailey or anything of the sort, and that it was extremely important that he spoke truthfully to aid the investigation.
At this point in time, we don't have any reason to suspect you had any involvement in any of this, in the specific incident that happened. We think you may have information that may help us out with it. Okay, you understand that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Tree established that he had known Aiden for about a year. He and his family had moved to the area, and the two met on his first day at Patriot Oaks Academy. They became friends within the first 5 minutes and were inseparable for the first 2 weeks of that relationship.
He hung out every day for like the past 2 weeks. Not the past 2 weeks, but the first 2 weeks I was there.
The first 2 weeks you were there. Okay.
Tree routinely hung out with Zoffi as well. They were like a friend group. He also explained that Aiden rarely spoke about those macabre things with him. He did not like them, so Aiden mostly shared those thoughts with Zoffi.
Death, about killing.
He did all the time.
He did all the time. Like, can you elaborate on that for me?
So we'd hang out every day. He would, about every 2 weeks, we'd have a conversation about it. Like, not a conversation, he would just say that. He's talked about it way more with Zoffi than he ever has with me.
Mm-hmm.
He's brought it up maybe like 4 or 5 times because he's seen the way I reacted to it. Because, but he talks about it all the time with Zoffi.
Another friend of his was Tristyn Bailey. He knew her separately, which is why she was sucked into Aiden's circle.
Tristyn, I would hang out with her more alone or with, like, if I had somebody staying the night, she'd come over and it'd be the 3 of us.
Tristyn had hung out with him when Aiden was around a couple of times, and there was never any sign of the tragedy that was to come. Well, except for Aiden's obsession with stabbing people and constant statements that he would kill someone. That should have been the warning. But of course, it was all fun, games, and dark humor with this friend group.
And that's why I got this, was a curveball to me, because, Aiden has said, some messed up stuff to me, to Zoffi, saying he was going to do things, but you don't really take any of that stuff serious as coming from a teenager.
Just like Zoffi, Tree could recall multiple occasions where Aiden spoke about killing. Aiden had told Tree that it would be satisfying to slit somebody's throat with one of his knives.
Killing people, he's talked about fighting people. I've seen him practice stabbing emotions with his knife.
When asked about that particular Saturday night, Tree had some very specific things to say. He explained that he was suspended from school so he couldn't leave his house. Aiden had left Zoffi's house that night and arrived at his house sometime around 8 p.m. Sometime past 11 p.m. they both went outside to smoke marijuana.
Over around 8 after he got done hanging out with Zoffi. He came around 8 o'clock, 8:20ish. And he was there for a couple hours. And then me and him decided we were going to smoke some like weed.
Then, at around 12 a.m., Tree thinks of Tristyn and decides to invite her over. It was not anything specific, it was just something he usually did, especially if Zuffy was not around. At that moment, he got a call from another friend. Aiden then requested to call Tristyn himself to continue the conversation with Tristyn. Tree then gave Tristyn's contact to Aiden.
I was like, okay, Tristyn, I'll call you back, and then I was on the phone with her. And then Aiden was like, can I call her? Like, can you give me your number real quick? And I was just like, sure. I thought he was gonna call on her to see where she's at. So he called her and he convinced her to leave before like her sister went upstairs to go to bed.
Before Tristyn arrived, Aiden and Tree had gone back inside the house. Because of the cold, Aiden had borrowed a black hoodie from Tree, the same hoodie he was spotted wearing on the CCTV footage of him and Tristyn walking home later that night.
It's a black hoodie that says Death Valley on it, and it has cactuses, like a bull skull. And that night he was wearing pants, that hoodie, and black high tops. Not black high top, but white Nike high tops with a black Nike symbol.
Okay, so just for your reference there, Trey just described the clothing that Aiden was wearing that night.
And I know the shoes because when we were skating outside and he took off the hoodie and left that one in my garage, he borrowed a pair of my Vans to put on because we were outside practicing skating.
When Tristyn arrived, she made a fuss over how her sister had caught her sneaking out that night.
And then she got there, she was freaking out. She was like, oh my god, they caught me, she's gonna tell my parents. And then Aiden's just like, you're good, you're fine, nothing's gonna happen. So
at this point, Tree was starting to nod off. He said he was extremely tired from the activities of that day. This was his explanation as to why he did not follow Tristyn and Aiden, as they subsequently went outside. He joined them at some point, but because of the cold, he left them again.
I got up, went back outside, and then I took another hit off of the CBD, and then I was like, it's too cold out here, I'm going back inside. So I went back inside, and then I was scrolling through TikTok on my phone, and I fell asleep.
For some reason, they both came into the house. The door was loud, so it startled Tree and woke him up. At that point, everything still seemed normal to Tree. It was typical of Tristyn to stay over at his place for hours until he told her to leave.
I was like, y'all got it. I was like, y'all should go, because I'm falling asleep. And Tristyn, she'll wait to get, like, she won't leave. She'll sit there for hours until, like, I tell her to leave.
So when he told her to go home, she did so. Only this time, she was going to be walking home with a troubled kid obsessed with knives that had given himself a deadline to make his first kill. Tree was not so sure, but he speculated that they left his house sometime around 1 a.m. or a couple of minutes past. The detective asked Tree if Tristyn or Aiden had mentioned where they were headed, but Tree explained that he had not asked. He simply told them to leave and then rolled himself over on the bed. He only remembered the door closing, and that was it.
Even in Tristyn's time. Okay. I was maybe with Tristyn around 10 minutes the entire time.
Okay.
Because I went out there for a minute, and then I came back inside, and then when they came back inside, I told them to leave. So I didn't really spend a lot of time with her. I didn't really have too much conversation with her.
Okay.
The next day seemed pretty normal to Tree. He woke up around 9 a.m. He assumed Aiden was home and Tristyn was home also. Later, at around 10 a.m., he went over to Home Depot for supplies because he and Aiden had this idea to build a fun box for skating. When he got back, he was in the garage working on their project when the police arrived.
Build this fun box for skating, and then you said the police showed up?
Yeah, they got up, they were there around 11. They got there around 11 when we got back, and the thing was already, we're waiting for the glue to dry on it.
Just like any other teenager, he panicked, wondering what he or his parents could have possibly done wrong. Then he was told that Tristyn Bailey was reported missing by her parents. He immediately tried to get in touch with her.
10 times, texted her after all that, and then I called Aiden, and I was just like, do you know what happened last night?
He asked Aiden what had happened the night before, and Aiden lied, that he had dropped her off in front of her neighborhood before heading home. Not knowing what had happened, Tree had earlier told the police that Aiden had gone home on his skateboard like he usually would.
He just said he dropped her off at the front of at the front of her neighborhood, and he went home. I thought he was on a skateboard. I told the cops he skated home, but because usually we skate everywhere. But he walked with her, which I also thought was weird because he never walks, he always skates.
Tree also told the police everything he thought was relevant to the police finding Tristyn at that point. He told them she was at his place before she left with Aiden. He gave them Aiden's address and the investigation began in full force.
On the way to your house, I was just like, they were coming to talk to you, and he was just like, what? And I was like, yeah, okay. And so that's when I saw like a little bit of panic in his face, just a little bit, but I don't know.
So you FaceTimed him for that call?
Yeah, I FaceTimed him both times.
Okay.
When he made the video at the back of the police car with Aiden, he had no idea that Tristyn was dead. Tree still believed that Aiden had done nothing wrong.
Like, let's make memories. Like you make a Snapchat memory and you save it. So we remember whenever like all this happened. I made one and I was just like, Tristyn, whenever you do come back, when they find you, I'm gonna be so mad at you. I had to sit in the back of a cop car for like 30 minutes. Because I didn't know anything happened.
He wasn't with Aiden for a long time, but he recalled a particularly distasteful conversation he had with Aiden before they were separated.
Us being in prison. And I was like, that's not funny. I was like, I'm not trying to go to prison anytime soon, ever. Because like, wouldn't it be funny if like we both went to the same prison? And I was like, no, not really. I mean, I didn't even really pay much attention to it. I didn't even respond to it.
These are the people who knew Aiden Fucci. His girlfriend, Zoe Bauman, testified against him, and his best friend Trey also testified against him. This was reason enough to change the charges against Aiden Fucci at the time. All the evidence pointed to a premeditated murder, which was all that mattered for justice to be served. As such, Aiden Fucci was charged with the first-degree murder of Tristyn on the 27th of May. Aiden Fucci was held without bond at the Duval Country Jail in Jacksonville while awaiting his arraignment, where he would be required to plead guilty or not guilty. On the 3rd of June, Aiden Fucci pleaded not guilty to the murder of Tristyn Bailey, and his pre-trial hearing was set for the 1st of September. Sometime before the scheduled pre-trial hearing, we saw a video feed of Aiden at the Duval Country Jail.
How come on? You demons. I don't want you demons take my soul.
In this video, he is wearing his orange jumpsuit, but unlike other times we have seen, he is wearing a very confused look on his face. He flips his hair back and continues to look disorientated and confused. He holds up the receiver to his ear to listen to the court proceedings and occasionally starts rocking back and forth. With a dazed expression, he mutters things like, "Please don't let the demons take my soul. The demons are going to take my soul away," and stuff like that. This video caused an uproar when it was released. A lot of people believed that this was completely fake and that Aiden Fucci was just trying to act crazy so that he could later plead insanity or, at the very least, delay the trial with a competency evaluation. To be honest, if this isn't narcissism, then we don't know what is. The pre-trial was set for the 1st of September, but due to some technical difficulties, it got moved to the 28th of October. On that day, Aiden finally appeared in court, but the judge then granted a continuance that was filed by Aiden's attorney. As a result of the continuance motion, Aiden's pre-trial was to be held sometime in 2022. Forward to 2022, there was increasing speculation about the case. Several reports showed that new evidence was expected to be used during the trial, from text messages to DNA of family members and even jail phone calls. There was also speculation that 911 calls and fire department incident reports were somehow tied to the Aiden Fucci case. This information that has been shared will supposedly show us a much different side of Aiden Fucci. On the 5th of April 2022, Aiden finally appeared in court for his pre-trial hearing. This time he was assigned a new public defender who requested for the trial to be postponed again because she had a case in another country that she needed to complete. The judge granted this motion to delay the trial, but a specific trial date wasn't released that day. The defense also requested to ban video cameras in the courtroom during the jury selection, as well as a motion to close pre-trial hearings to local television stations. There was also a motion to restrict public access to the trial and prohibit prejudicial emotional outbursts because it could sway and influence the jury or lead to a mistrial, which the judge denied. The trial of Aiden Fucci was then set for February 2023. A public survey was issued on the death of Tristyn Bailey and the Aiden Fucci murder case to help determine who could be disqualified to serve on a jury or possibly even move jurisdictions. The survey was sent directly from the public defender's office.
I've never been aware of a survey like this, but I think it's an excellent use of technology to save the community time and resources to have to figure out who is going to be disqualified from serving as a juror.
Aiden's mother, Crystal Smith, had appeared in court sometime back in August 2022 for her pre-trial hearing. Remember, she was charged with tampering with evidence, as it was believed that she washed Aiden's pair of jeans with Tristyn's blood all over them. It is heartbreaking that this case dragged on for so long and denied Tristyn's family the peace and justice they deserve. The Bailey family has since set up a Facebook page set to honor Tristyn's memory. Her mother runs the page dedicated to keeping Tristyn's memory alive. Everyone hoped that Aiden Fucci would be held accountable for his crimes and that Tristyn's family could finally get justice for her. What Aiden did was senseless, disgusting, and brutal. The act was premeditated in such a way that if it was not Tristyn, it would have been someone else. Tristyn's wounds tell the matter of force and senseless anger that her attacker used. 49 defensive wounds show that Tristyn fought for her life. At no point did Aiden Fucci even stop to consider compassion. He had compassion on his feet, which were hurting so bad that he had to take his shoes off, but he had no such compassion for Tristyn. Since his arrest, it has been an unending series of trial delays and court filings, but the trial of Aiden Fucci officially began in February 2023.